Okay, I'm here a day after the workshop at the conference hotel. I'm here with Gerőcs, one of the participants of the workshop. So, Gerőcs, can you just introduce yourself to our viewers, please?
Yes, so my name is Tamás Gerőcs. I'm a PhD candidate in Budapest, Hungary, at the Corvinus University of Budapest. And I'm also a junior research fellow at the Institute of World Economics, Hungarian Academy of Sciences. Besides that, I'm a member of a public organization, Working Group for Public Sociology, Helyzet, also based in Budapest. Our membership consists of mainly sociologists or other scholars, and we try to work with social organizations and activists to help their work, especially to help them build their strategy, help them have a bit of a more global and historical perspective on their own work and on the social environment around them in which they operate.
Thank you. You have been with us for the last 2 days during this ROAPE workshop in Dar es Salaam at the University of Dar es Salaam. How was the workshop? How's your impression?
Well, it was fascinating. I was surprised how really political it was. To be honest, I did not expect it beforehand. I thought it would be something similar to those workshops and conferences in which academic people debate on a relatively abstract level questions that are not close enough to people's everyday life. So to my surprise, this was a very different case here. Most members were really very committed comrades, and they debated both about everyday struggle and also on theoretical questions as well, but not something abstract, but those questions that relate to these struggles.
Okay, what were for you the highlights of the workshop? I mean, there might be many, but for you, the two key highlights.
Well, the main highlight I would emphasize is a kind of a comparison or parallel to what we experience in Eastern Europe, which is geographically far away from Africa, and of course our historical legacy is somewhat different to the historical situation in many African countries, but still from a bit of a systemic point of view, I found many parallels and many similarities, especially around those debates that's been coming up in this workshop. So let me give you one short example. We are analyzing and debating about our approach to the so-called regime change, the transformation from the previous state socialist system to the capitalist system. What is the legacy of state socialism in Hungary? What approach should we have on the left to that period? And well, it requires both a deep critical analysis, if you like, and also we have to think about how to use these references, what to take as a heritage from this period. And I found a very similar debate here, especially on the legacy of Julius Nyerere in Tanzania, how people, both scholars and activists, try to assess the achievements, the modernization achievements, but also the contradictions of the period of the 60s and 70s. And I think there was the question in the air about what to learn from this legacy and what approach people need to have to the Nyerere period, to the Arusha Declaration today. What does it teach us, and what critics can we make about it? So I find it is a very similar debate that we have at home about state socialism or state capitalism. That's part of the debate, how we think to these modernization efforts, whether they were really revolutionary as their ideology suggested, or in fact these were more like periods or a state that reproduced capitalist social relations. So this is the main highlight that I found, both very interesting, very fascinating, politically absolutely relevant and accurate today, and to the surprise, these debates are not isolated, unique debates in various countries, but I see the parallel. I see some systemic tendencies, why and how people have very similar questions around the world.
Great. What was for you new? Was any point that you were not aware of before? So just in brief.
Yeah, what really was very new to me is this political commitment and political activism, that the debates were really about how to make a social change, how to help social movements and social activists in their efforts. So I found it like very non-academic in the sense, and I also found it very fruitful how people were enthusiastic and committed to debate this, to link up and to build their networks, either on a Pan-African, so regional level, but also what I try to contribute to this from Eastern Europe to have it even more global perspective, because many things that happens here in Africa, that happens to labor in Africa, is again similar to Eastern Europe. The forces, the global forces, are the same that's affecting us. Of course, there are many differences, but I think it would be really important to broaden this perspective as global as possible, and of course, the regional approach is very important too. But I myself would like to see a larger network, a larger alliance between workers really all around the world, especially between semi-peripheral and peripheral countries such as Eastern Europe, Africa, Latin America, Southern Asia, against capital, both on the global level but also within our own countries.
Great. Final one. You mentioned this already a little bit. What was different or special about this ROAPE conference in Dar es Salaam? I mean, compared to the other workshops or conferences that you usually attend or other gatherings. So, just one point maybe.
So one thing that I already mentioned is how non-academic really it was, despite the fact there was very accurate professional knowledge that people exchanged and applied here. And maybe the other thing which I would also like to highlight is the form of the workshop. So not only like the style of the debates, but that there were no frontal lectures. It was not really about lectures. It was I really appreciated the kind of a successful attempt to build up a dialogue. So not like simply being silent observers, silent listeners to one another, but to try to engage people to enter into a dialogue from very different countries, from relatively different backgrounds, with relatively different experiences, and it worked very well. I think it was a very international community, with very rich experiences, and we could maximize the relatively short length of time to really exchange ideas and experience each other's work. So I would appreciate this kind of approach to the dialogue, how much this partnership work in the workshop.
I think you are the only Eastern Africanist, right, in a way, at this workshop, yeah?
From Eastern, I think
Eastern
I'm
Europe,
the only one from
Eastern Europe, yeah. Did you make any concrete contacts? I mean, did you exchange contacts with?
Many. Mostly with activists. So initially, I expected that it would be a little more academic. So I come with an academic background, like I'm a member of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, but the way it worked at the end was more like I use my civilian profile, and I think I will try to network with many of the social movement activists whom I met here, and to contact them to Hungarian, Eastern European organizations.
Okay, and you also mentioned personally to me yesterday that you were part of a protest against G20 in Germany, yes. Right? So you have a bit of a protest history as well, yeah? Activist a bit.
Very much. In fact, we have some very bad times in Hungary. So Hungary is among those European countries that's been rapidly shifting to the extreme right. I might call it even to a proto-fascist state. We just had elections last week, so I think when I go back in a few days, I'll just find myself in the middle of massive demonstrations and protests that's been taking place on the streets in Hungary. And this is nothing very new, so we've been living under these quite dire conditions for almost like 10 years. And as I've mentioned, we always look at these developments, political developments, as part of a global trend, a global story. So we really want to link up with other groups, with other activists, in our own region, so we're building an Eastern European network, but we are very, very much open to meet fellow comrades all around the world who are in similar struggles. And as I've emphasized, despite the geographical distances and historical differences between Africa and Eastern Europe or Latin America, from a systemic point of view, I think we are much closer to each other. Our experiences are much more in parallel than if I compare, let's say, Eastern Europe to Western Europe. So I feel the potential in this linking up, and definitely so, as much as I can afford, I'm visiting, attending protests around the world or in a bit of a broader, so not only in Hungary, and Germany was one example I gave, is the G8, but also I'm more active in Eastern Europe, from Bulgaria to Prague and Warsaw. We are mobilizing together with our leftist comrades there, and we are trying to help each other as much as we can.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.